I'm Madeline Melka, President and CEO of APAICS, the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies. Thank you for joining us today for our APAICS In Conversation. We're honored to have two phenomenal women today, and we have Jennifer Wang, who is our moderator. She is an enforcement attorney for FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. She has served as a president of the Dallas Asian American Bar Association, a board member of the Dallas Bar Association, and as chair of the State Bar of Texas Women in the Profession Committee. Before embarking on her legal career, Jennifer was a print and broadcast journalist and considers herself privileged to have worked alongside Judge Karen Gren Scholer when both were in private practice. And we're honored today to have Judge Karen Gren Scholer, who was confirmed to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas by a vote of 95-0. And she has the distinction of being nominated by both President Trump and President Obama to the federal bench. Prior to her appointment, she was partner at Carter, Scholer, Arnett, Amata, Mockler, PLLC in Dallas, and served as a Texas State District Judge and a presiding judge for Dallas County. Active in her community, Judge Scholer has served in leadership positions in the Dallas Bar Association and Asian Pacific American community organizations. As always, if you're joining us on the webinar, please put your questions in the chat box. And if you're joining us on Facebook, please put them in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Madeline. So I know we have a very short time, and we're going to just jump right in with Judge Scholer. I don't want to say that introduction about your nomination to the bench was exactly straight on, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is that even 10 years, a full 10 years before your appointment to the bench, you've been on multiple shortlists for nominations, so after being nominated twice by two very different administrations, both the Obama and Trump administration, and then ultimately confirmed by a 95-0 vote in the Senate. I just want how that moment felt to you.
Well, I still don't believe it. Okay, the Northern District of Texas was without a new district judge literally for over 10 years. And I was the first new Northern District of Texas, not just Dallas, Fort Worth, Amarillo, Lubbock, we just had none for over 10 years. And like you told me, like you said, it was two nominations. And when it happened, it was disbelief and seemed surreal. And I still wake up sometimes thinking it's not real. In fact, just to put things in perspective, it was, in my view, harder to become a district judge in the Northern District of Texas than United States Supreme Court justice, because in that same 10-year period, 3 justices were confirmed in the United States Supreme Court. So arguably, tougher to get this job. But no, I'm very grateful, honored, excited, and learning something every single day. It's been amazing.
So with your confirmation, you have the historical distinction of being the first Asian American United States District Court judge in the entire Southwest region, right? The only female APA Article III judge in the entire 5th District. You celebrated your 2nd anniversary on the bench in March, but your public service goes back many, many more years than this. Tell us how you first got into public service.
Well, as far as an office holder, where you get a title, I think I've been in public service for most of my grown-up life in community service with various nonprofits, in the nonprofit sector, in the Asian American sector, in the women's sector, in the legal sector. But as far as public service where it was my job, I jumped in and ran for a state district judge against an incumbent back in 2000. Texas is one of the handful of states in the United States that still has partisan election of judges. So that meant, unfortunately, you had to raise money, put up yard signs, billboards, talk about yourself over and over and over. Dallas County was a couple million people. So I jumped in and decided to run for judge. Luckily, I won against all odds with a lot of support, and served 8 years as a state district judge before I decided I wanted to be an advocate again, and went to Jones Day after 8 years on the bench.
So what challenges did you face when you decided to run for office? And do you have any unique perspective as an Asian American running for office?
Oh, there were so many challenges. I do want to say that as an Asian American, okay, I was born in Tokyo, Japan, and my mother is Japanese. She's a naturalized United States citizen. She married an American after World War II, which was not cool to do in Japan. He had immigrant parents. He was, both his mom and dad, my grandparents on my dad's side, were Polish immigrants. So I'm 50% Japanese and 50% Polish. But as all of you know, or most of you know, I've compared notes with a whole lot of you. The Asian American mother will take over on how you're raised. And so running for office was a challenge, first with, being raised pretty much as, I think, a traditional Asian American in the United States, which is there was a heavy emphasis on education, education, education. Do not impose other people. Don't talk about yourself. Don't, of course, never ask for money. And running for political office, which state district judgeship in Texas is everything that we've been taught not to do as an Asian American female, at least for me. My mother was mortified. I was a partner at that time, was Andrews and Kurth, now Hunt and HK. Very great job, great firm. I think too, and I'm generalizing, that generally, at least my mother and parents of my APA friends, they tend to be risk adverse, okay? Why are you gonna do this, my mother? Why are you gonna do this crazy thing? You're a partner in a law firm. Why are you gonna do this? You're gonna lose. I mean, So I had, first challenge was my mother. Side note, you know that I won the election, and fast forward a little bit down the road, I do remember there was a billboard that went up in Dallas, and at the base of the, right on the tollway. It was pretty cool, actually. It said my name, made me feel like important because I paid for something that went on a billboard, or my supporters did. And my mother heard about it, and Toshiko said, I heard that you have a billboard with your name on it. I said, yeah, Mom, don't you think that's neat? And she said, no, it brings shame. And so I kind of compartmentalized her. And so I kept going. And about a month before the primary, this is a true story, I'm not exaggerating one bit. Toshiko came to me and said, I have been praying every day that you would give up this crazy idea of yours, but God is not going to answer my prayers. So I will take the yard sign now. And then, as well, some people call them tiger moms do, she decided to be insulted. Everybody in the neighborhood who didn't have a Karen Johnson, my name was Johnson then, Karen Johnson for judge sign in there. So I kind of liked it better when she was taking the back seat instead of telling me how to run my campaign. But there were challenges. There were also community challenges, Jennifer. There had never been an Asian American elected judge, or I think official, in Dallas, okay? And I decided I was going to do it. And I thought it was about time for lots of reasons. I thought the bench needed changing. I thought we needed a female Asian American on the bench. And deep down, I just wanted to do it. It was just something I wanted to do. And I've been telling all the people in my law firms, follow your dreams, you know, assess your talent and go for it. And here I wasn't doing the thing that I was preaching. So I was going to go for it. And I remember going to the Asian American community, and I distinctly remember a parent of one of my son's friends who was Asian saying, I said, you know, I think it's time for an Asian American judge. There's so many of us here. We need the representation. And he said, well, I don't know of any that are qualified. And he looked straight at me. And I thought, wow, there's challenges even among, you know, one of my communities. So, you know, and there's fundraising challenges and all that. But one thing led to another. And this was back in 1990, okay, I'm sorry, 2000. If I keep saying 1990, I apologize. This was 20 years ago in 2000, because I took the oath of office as a state court judge, 01/01/01, okay, January 1, 2001. And it was just a challenge. And so I remember going to various APA groups I was members of, and some of my friends decided, okay, we're going to do this. We think it should happen too. So there were a couple groups that started with me as the guinea pig. One still exists and is massively influential in the North Texas area. It's called the DFW Asian American Citizens Council. I was on the ground floor of that. And I was their first subject. And it was really wonderful to see the various Asian communities come together. I wish it wasn't me, because it's hard to talk about me, but you know, the Taiwanese, the Chinese, the Philippine, the Indian, the Japanese, and so on, coming together. And another group was unofficial called VOA, VOAA, Voice of Asian Americans. And they started an APA fundraisers. And then Dallas Asian American Bar Association got involved. And my girlfriends, and many of you know, many of them because they are very active in NAPABA, they came together. And it was like, okay, Karen is the excuse for a party. We want to win. So we're going to do this. And there were newspapers with my photo on it that were in Chinese. There were radio spots in Vietnamese talking about me. I had no idea what they were saying, but I trusted my friend Jennifer Nguyen or Wei Wei or Susie, or, you know, the list just goes on, that they were saying nice things. And I won.
So on a local level.
By the way, 10 points against an incumbent, which never happens. Okay. So, all right. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
No, I was just saying that that kind of network and support group that you're describing that kind of occurred organically in Dallas so many years ago sounds to me very much like the organized effort that APAICS is engaged in right now to encourage APAs into public service and to consider potentially running for office. You know, so what advice would you have to all of the people who are watching, or just, you know, APAs in general who may be interested in either public service or in running for office?
Well, particular to the Asian American community, but anybody who wants to get involved with public service, I say do it and take advantage of organizations such as APAICS or the Asian American Citizens Council, or NAPABA, or other organizations. They are now organized, and I was floundering. In my federal nomination, NAPABA was so supportive. Vincent Eng was so supportive. And I think that organically happened too, because I co-chaired the NAPABA convention in Dallas back in 2004. Yes, 2004. So the advice I would say is ask yourself, no matter who you are, what would you do if you knew you could not fail. Okay. And for me right now, I hate the word failure because it implies something very negative, you know, but I have not gotten something many times. College, high school, law school, I have not gotten what I've wanted many times. But would I go back and travel a different journey than I traveled? Not a chance. Because with every thing that I wanted so bad that when I didn't get it, it hurt. It ranged from embarrassment to insecurity to questioning your self-worth. All that made me a stronger, better person along the road. You know, silly things like I was head varsity cheerleader my sophomore year in college. And I tried out again with no effort. I mean, I assumed because I was head varsity cheerleader and I could do flip-flops. This is something that Vincent doesn't know, and I know he's going to tease me about it to the end of time, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Well, the next year, I didn't make it. It was a popular vote. I didn't do any campaigning. And what that taught me is I am not going to run for office unless I truly want it, and I'm truly going to go for it 100%. Okay? So if you run for something or you put yourself out, it's a huge commitment. Not only with the resources that I told you about, but it's also a mental and emotional commitment. And it'll affect your family life. Okay? I don't think I went to a movie or took a shower or ate a dinner. And maybe this is the way my mind is wired. I could not just concentrate on what was in front of me, because when you run for office, there's always another person you could talk to. There's another place you could visit. There's something else you could do. There's another letter you can do. And, you know, the rest of your life suffers. So you got to want it really bad. So what I would say is for all of you considering it, assess your talents, but most of all, your passion. Work on your skills, be patient, and do some groundwork, and then go for it. And do not be afraid of what we call failure. You can hate it, okay? As a trial lawyer, I hated losing anything. Hearings, trial, anything. That's why I'm a better judge than a trial lawyer, because I hate even the thought of losing. I love winning, athletics, everything. But you can hate it, but don't be afraid of it. And if you don't get it, the same as I didn't over and over again all my life, first of all, it's the same as if you never tried at all, okay? So if you go after something and you don't get it, you're the same place you were before. So why not go for it and you might get it, right? And also along the way of getting something, not getting something you were trying to achieve, you learn so many lessons. You meet so many great people. People think of you next time. There's not enough time in this program for me to tell you all the people that were discovered because they were willing to put their neck out there and run for something or go after something. And the next thing that came up, they were thought of. So timing is key. Jumping on opportunities when they come your way is key. And one more thing I want to say, most of the most successful people I know, whether it's public service or otherwise, take some risk. That's against a lot of our nature, okay? You've got to take some risk if that's where your passion is, and embrace that. And if along the way, you are kind and good to other people and you help them, and you shouldn't do that just because of what they can do for you later on, okay? But if you are just a decent giving community person, when you decide you're going to stick your neck out there, it is shocking how many people come and rally around you. Shocking.
So I want to shift a little bit, since you are on the bench in the midst of this pandemic. I wanted to ask how you're managing your court, and to tell us a little bit about these courthouse conversations that you've started since everybody's now required to physically distance.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. This pandemic, I think you got a flavor. For those that know me, know that I'm a people person, okay? Federal courts don't have to have hearings. A lot of my colleagues, for very good reasons of their own, they've walked different paths than I have. Several of them have told me, in quotes, hearings are overrated. That's not me. I love advocacy. I love meeting people. I love seeing what they have to say. I believe in oral advocacy. I watched a lot of, this really shows my age, but okay, I've seen Perry Mason and LA Law. I was religious about it. And I asked my law clerks if they heard of any of that, and they gave me these like deer in the headlights looks. They, digressing, they didn't even know who Radar O'Reilly is. Okay. Big percentage of this audience is going to say, who's Radar O'Reilly? Jennifer, you know who Radar is? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, if any of you are MASH watchers, I'm back in there. Radar, and I was telling this to my law clerks, Radar, my law clerks get to the point where I start a sentence, they finish it with me. Or I say I'm going to need something and they hand it to me. And that's Radar O'Reilly, okay? And anyway, but I digress. I'm a people person. I can't stand not having hearings, having live in-person trials. I've had hundreds in 2 years. I've had hundreds, I think over 600 hearings since I took the bench, if that gives you some idea. What other federal court are you aware of that has had that many hearings? And I learned from all of them. We get a lot done. And I realize the way I am is not for everybody. So it's been rough. We have been clunkering along with video conference sentencings, which can only be authorized by an act of Congress, which is the CARES Act in the stimulus bill. It only can be authorized, you can only go forward where a bunch of other I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and the defendant consents. So the wheels of justice on the criminal side, the Dallas courthouse is not having in-person trials again. We did for a little bit in June, but everybody knows the South right now is. I personally thought in July and August we would have a break from this coronavirus, but it's worse than it's ever been before. So I created, based on these Zooms, something called Courthouse Conversations to try to connect. I actually had a couple deans of law schools, my alma mater, which is Cornell, a dean there, as well as a director here, a local law school, Texas A&M. And they said, can you do some virtual internships? And I didn't want to. What am I going to do with them? But then I thought a lot of internships, a lot of job opportunities were being canceled. For the least I can do is say yes, do my best, and have them have something on their resume. Well, it got to be the best thing ever, because we started these courthouse conversations and nobody said no. It brought community. They are learning, they have about 3 to 5 a week. And these involve we've got one coming up involving the federal public defender, and that's called Gideon's Army. We had one focusing on the chiefs of all the Northern District of Texas U.S. attorneys. We have one later this week called Veterans of the State and Federal Bench, 100+ years of experience. And we're featuring 2 of our senior judges, Fitzwater, Judge Fish, and Judge Godby, who's not a senior judge, but he's been around a while. And between them, they've had 100 years on the bench. We're going to talk to them. We've had, some of you know, Fifth Circuit Judge Jim Ho, and of course his better half, Allison Ho, and we had them. And Jim was actually fun, okay? And that's because I put them together with Allison, and we had an hour on them called An Appealing Couple. Get it? All right, well, they were fun and very much an appealing couple. And the list goes on, and we've gone over a dozen now. We've got about 20. Last Monday, we had a very tough one. It was designed before the tragedy of George Floyd's death on diversity in the courthouse and the legal profession. But of course, we had a lot more to talk about last Monday, and so on. So it's been a home run.
So these are all, I'm going to remind people, these are all virtual, essential video conferences that you've put together, right?
Right.
I'm hearing that they've become so popular. There are judges who are not speaking on the panel who are dialing in.
Right.
So,
So we now have about 100 people. I mean, this is invitation only because some of the speakers, felt more comfortable with the courthouse family. But the chief Zoom bombs in. Our chief judge, Barbara Lynn, will Zoom bomb in everyone. It's kind of become a ritual. We did one on her about 2 weeks ago called the Chief Debrief, and focusing on what it's like to be the chief judge during times of shooters. Now, we had a shooting, a very terrifying one a year ago. Shutdowns, the government shutdown, pandemics and protests. I mean, this has all been in the 2 years I've been here. So there's so many exciting things to talk about. And I've learned with every one of them. So it's been a fun way to get the community together here during the pandemic. But otherwise, it's tough. It's really tough.
you not only host these are very recent, but I've known you for years, and you've hosted all kinds of other gatherings and panel discussions that really inspire people. Inspiring Women in Dallas is your baby. You have a secret formula for these discussions that causes people, everybody, to want to dial in.
Well, this is what I do, and I hope you all do it too. So if you think that something would be personally appealing to you, then I put it together, then I ask people that I think would be most interesting to talk to. So the Inspiring Women panel that you mentioned, it's been going on now, it's our 12th year. It's called Inspiring Women, Humor and War Stories to Get to the Top of Your Game. And so I get managing partners, general counsels, federal judges. It's got to be somebody that's done something incredible with a title. And then they get on the panel and tell them, man, don't look inside my closets. Don't, it's this balancing act. There is no such thing as a balancing act. So we tell it like it is. So my thing I run in my head is you've got to be engaging. Okay, so people have got to want to listen to you. They want not fake stuff. They want you to talk about your disappointments and that it wasn't easy to be you, because so many people think, oh gosh, so I want to be like Karen. And by the way, they've destroyed my name now. I hate this Karen thing going around, okay? So I'm going to change that. So instead of Karen and Ken, it's going to be Vincent and Madeline or something, okay? So I'm just kidding, don't. So it's got to be engaging. It's got to be enlightening, okay? So they've got to learn a little bit of how people got there. It's got to be educational. I want people to come away with 2 or 3 takeaways that they can relate to and put into their life. If you come away with 2 from what I've said today, I've done what I wanted to do. And then finally, I think you've got to be entertaining. So, I try very hard not to put people on my panels or structure it in a way that the audience is not eyes glazed over. So yeah, it's what I do. I love it. It's fun when it all comes together. It's very stressful. But in 12 years of Inspiring Women, it is, with one email, we sell out 700 seats with a wait list of about 100 or 200 more. And it's the most popular CLE the Dallas Bar Association, with its thousands and thousands of members, has ever had in its 175-year history. And guys try to come in too. Jennifer, you've been in. Isn't it fun?
Sells out in hours.
Yeah.
With that. So in the spirit of takeaways, I know one of the things that APAICS wants to ask everyone who has these conversations is what your definition of a resilient leader is?
Well, my definition of a resilient leader, and if you look up, which I did, I'll admit to you, the definition of resilient is someone who faces challenges, and I'm putting it in my words, keeps going. So you talked earlier about my 10-year odyssey to the federal bench. And I didn't get it the first time. And I was nominated by President Obama. I didn't get it that time. And, you know, in the nation, there's not many Obama-Trump nominees, and I'm very proud to be one, okay? Because if, and a 95-0, I'm very proud of that. But there were times where it's just like the phoenix rising from the ashes. That's what I think a resilient leader is. I think a leader, all of the leaders I know have had tough times in their life. I remember when I was a partner at Jones Day, it was after my divorce. It was when things were kind of going tough with my kids. I had had a health issue. I had changed jobs. And I remember being down on my knees saying, God, you are not, I'm going to get teary-eyed just thinking about it. You're not supposed to give me more than I can handle. And you just did. And you get up off your knees. I remember a friend had come in kind of coincidentally at that time, and that's another story. And you keep going, and you are stronger, and you are better, and you are wiser, and you know you can survive. And life is not pretty all the time. Life is not easy all the time. And I think a resilient leader shows by example that when you're on your knees, you can get up with the support of others. You can lead by example here, but you can also be that person too, that when you know that someone is on their knees, you can reach out quietly. And, you know, it's amazing how words of comfort can bring people up. I had somebody today, a law clerk that doesn't work for me, tell me that her father has COVID. And I responded back. I'm not saying I'm doing the right thing, but I think it was very meaningful to her that a federal judge wrote back to her and said, my prayers are with you. Hang in there. Let me know how it's going. So that would be how I tackle that definition.
Thank you. I think that's a great thing for everybody to keep in mind, especially during this pandemic.
Well, thank you so much to Judge Karen Gren Scholer and to Jennifer Wang for joining us today. We really appreciate the insights that you have shared. Just as a reminder, we will have our next APAICS In Conversation on Wednesday, July 8th at 12:30 p.m. Our special guest will be Major General William Chen, retired. He is the first Chinese American 2-star general in the U.S. Army. So please RSVP at the link attached, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much.